Good morning, everybody. I'm Gabe DeSanto. I'm the president of the Ontario High School Conservative Association. We're glad that you're able to join us today. Today, we are glad to have the MP for Parry Sound Muskoka joining us today, Scott Aitchison. Scott was first elected in 2019 to be an MP, but he has been in politics since 1994. In 1994, at the age of 21, Scott became the youngest person ever elected to Huntsville Town Council. Over the years, Scott has been actively involved with his community, and in 2010, he chaired the organizing committee of the 2010 Ontario Youth Games. In 2014, Scott was elected as the mayor of Huntsville, and now he is the MP for Parry Sound Muskoka. Thank you, Scott, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Gabe.
It is such a great thing that you're able to join us today. Thank you for joining us. Today's our 14th interview, and we're glad to have you here. We always like to start off the interview with our question and answer period, and all these questions come from our high school members from across Ontario and across Canada. So the first question is fairly simple. It comes from the OHSCA team, and we ask, why did you decide to get involved in politics?
Well, I've always been interested in it, I guess, is the first part of the answer. I remember as a kid, reading the local weekly newspaper in Huntsville. For people that aren't familiar with Huntsville, it's a small, sort of medium-sized town in central Ontario, but part of the more famous Muskoka. And I was always keenly interested in what was going on in town. So I remember always reading the newspaper. And when I did run, I wasn't really intending to run. It hadn't even occurred to me that I should run. I think I'd always thought that I would one day, but never occurred to me that I might be ready. And it was actually a former mayor who of course, in Huntsville, being mayor is a part-time job. It's a full-time lifestyle, but it's a part-time job. And the former mayor was also principal of Huntsville High School, where I had recently finished up and served as the president of Students' Council in my final year. Anyhow, that mayor and former mayor and former principal, Terry Clark, convinced me that I should run. I was taking a year off of university, so I didn't have to accumulate too many debts. And I told him that I had to go back to school after this year, and it made no sense. But he convinced me that I would probably lose my first time, but you've got to get your name out there. So I thought, if my mentor, Mr. Clark, tells me I should run, I should do it. So I did. And I think I spent a grand total of $600 on a campaign that I was permitted to spend somewhere around $12,000, and won by the skin of my teeth. It was very close, but it changed the trajectory of my life pretty dramatically. So I actually, in Muskoka, there's a two-tier municipal structure, much like the regions around Ontario. And so it's small enough, though, that you if you run for the regional council, you also get a seat on your local council. And I actually ran for a regional council. So I was the youngest ever Huntsville member of council, and I think I tied somebody else for the youngest district councilor or Muskoka regional councilor. So yeah, that's how I got started.
Well, thanks for sharing your experience with us. I know you mentioned you were on your high school council, and that's sort of a small starting point. I mean, high school government isn't that how do you say it? That like involved with actual politics, but it's enough to sort of get you interested if you are interested in politics. And then you went on and you just ran, and that's really, if people are interested in running, that's how you do it. You just get your name out there, like you mentioned. So the second question comes from Mackenzie in Burlington, and Mackenzie asks, how do you think rural versus urban living affects political views?
Well, quite dramatically, actually. I think I think it's one of the great challenges we face in this country. And I think it's a situation that is not unique to Canada, but I think it's exacerbated here by the fact that Canada is a vast country, second largest in terms of land mass in the world, and yet it's one of the most urbanized countries in the world. The vast majority of us live in cities, And cities have unique needs and rural communities have unique needs, but we also have similar needs. The housing crisis that we see in big cities is as real in many rural communities as it is there. We see it here in Parry, Muskoka, as much as anywhere else. But the way that our House of Commons is set up, the vast majority of members of Parliament represent urban areas, big urban areas, and so it's been one of the big frustrations that I've had going to Ottawa, and one of the reasons why I think it's important for rural MPs to be a very strong, loud voice to make sure that rural communities are not forgotten. So I mean, housing is an issue. There are other issues like rural internet connectivity. It's a bigger issue in the rural communities, but it's not that it isn't an issue in urban centers. It's a much bigger issue in rural communities, and so there is a divide to some degree. But I think it's important for us all to remember that every Canadian, no matter where they live, matters, and that's why it's important for us rural MPs to be loud.
Exactly. And our MPs are our representatives, and like you said, every single community has their needs. And when you approach the rural communities, there's a lot more different people that you wouldn't find in the city. Like there's lots of farms in rural areas, there's lots of farmers, there's lots of different uh groups of people that live in the rural areas that don't live in the city centers. Same with, there's lots of people that live in the city centers that don't necessarily live in the rural areas. And that's just a part of Canada. We have so much different needs, so many different industries throughout Canada, and everybody sits in different places. Like you have Toronto, which is giant. There's so many seats in Toronto, and then you have a place in the west where there's like for, I'm guessing, like province of Saskatchewan, there's not as many seats as there is in the province of Ontario, and that's just the way it is. And there's lots of rural
Yeah.
areas across Canada. So the third question comes from Evan in Ottawa, and he asks, how do you deal with hatefulness and some sort of hateful people online as a Conservative MP?
I guess probably the same way I've done it my entire political career, and that is to, for the most part, engage those folks. There's nastiness online. There's no question about it. But I've always believed that people who are angry, are angry for a reason. And usually that anger stems from a place of not really understanding an issue, being, feeling unheard maybe, and maybe not even really knowing much about me. That's the one advantage of literally growing up in municipal politics in a small community is, everybody knows who you are. I was born and raised in Huntsville, as was my father, my grandfather, my great grandfather, my great great grandfather, my great 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 grandfather. They all, they're all from Huntsville, and so, people get to know who you are. But it's tougher at a national level for people to know that I'm just a regular guy. I mean, I grew up in a small town and not rich, but just want to fight for my community. So I just try to engage, frankly. And some people aren't ready for that or interested in that, and so you just have to tune it out. You got to have a thick skin to be in politics, and know that personal attacks, they don't really mean very much because it's not real.
Exactly. And the thing with hate online is that most people that are hating online hide behind the screens. They don't give their names a lot of the time. They're mean. They just want to cause a disturbance, and they want reactions from people, which they're not going to get. So that's why you need to remember look at the bigger picture and think what's really important in life. And it kind of brings us back to sort of when we interviewed Toby Barrett. He's in Haldimand, Norfolk. He's the MPP there, and he's out in the country, and he said, like, it's back to the country living. It's sort of like different there too. And I don't know if you can attest this. I guess it's kind of similar sort of a mix of like rural, small towns, all that sort of thing. And it's different sort of living throughout Canada. And it's the same sort of thing where hate is more in different pockets of the country, but online it's there. So we got to deal with it and remember that it's not real, like you said. So the fourth question comes from Darian in St. Thomas, and he asks, how do you believe the Conservative Party can connect to youth? Similarly, well, we sort of see the NDP and the Green Party have a lot of youth support. How do you think that the Conservatives can connect to the youth the way that they do?
Well, I think it starts with things like this, actually engaging and talking and being open to discussion. I actually genuinely believe that young people, they're looking for opportunity as much as anybody else. They want to, live a full self-actualized life like everybody else. And I think part of the problem conservatives have is we are seen as kind of like the stuffy old party of big business or rich people, which just isn't the case. And I think it really falls to conservatives to maybe be a little less angry sometimes and talk about the positive aspects of what it means to be a conservative. The fundamental you know fight for individual freedoms, for opportunity for all, a strong, united Canada. These are the kinds of things that, uh, you know, conservatives, we've always fought for, and we still do. I think that, you know, ensuring an equality of opportunity for all is important. Conservatives don't believe that the government should be all things to all people. And I think that oftentimes the other parties maybe try to present things that way, and it's not sustainable. It's not healthy. It's ambition is a good thing, and we need to encourage that amongst all generations, especially young people.
Exactly. And we need to show our conservative way that we are a party that wants to, like the slogan now, secure the future for our for the young people like myself, for more young people that are going to be growing up in Canada. And the Conservative Party is a party for all. We recently interviewed Eric Duncan, your colleague, and he is a perfect example of bringing more people to the party and showing that we're an open party and we're not a party of the past, that we're the party of the future. And there's so many different people that come into our party with so many different walks of life. Like when we talked with Andrew Scheer recently, we talked about how there's so many different people that are in the Conservative Party. And that's basically it. We need to remember that we are a big party and that young people can find themselves in the Conservative Party. We have lots of appealing parts of being conservatives. We want smaller government. We don't want to be intruding on people's lives all the time like the other parties do. We just want a better life for every single Canadian from across the nation. So,
Absolutely true. I mean, I think this is another important point to make, though. That just because we don't want government to do all things for all people doesn't mean that we don't see a role for government to support those who need support. Conservatives are among the most generous Canadians out there.
exactly.
Big supporters of charitable causes. They're often more likely to be active volunteers in their community. Conservatives believe in lifting up their neighbor, but not necessarily having government just take care of everything for you.
Exactly. And that's also another great point, how we care for every single person, every single Canadian. And if someone needs help, we'll give them help. But that's basically it. We want every single Canadian to live a good life. And we want to have a government that works with the people, for the people, by the people, Abraham Lincoln. But we just want to have a government that works well for our people and our citizens across Canada. So before we wrap up, we always like to have a casual, friendly chat. We always like to speak of young conservatives and how they can get involved. So we always ask every single one of our guests, what do you think that young high school conservatives can do in order to get more politically active? And what's one piece of advice you would give them?
Just get involved, get engaged. There's campaigns probably coming up very soon, certainly at the provincial level and probably at the federal level. We don't know exactly when, but just get involved, get engaged, ask to, meet your candidate, help out on the campaign. Uh, just put your hand up. That's the best way to get involved.
Exactly. And you mentioned campaigns. I mean, campaigns are happening at so many levels. Conservative EDAs are choosing their candidates for the next federal election. I mean, it's coming at one point or another, and we need to be prepared for it. The provincial election is going to be in a year from now, and that's when the campaign is going to start. Get involved there and get involved with the Conservative Party of Canada whenever there's next election, and just really reach out, like you said, to your candidates, to your MPs, give them a call during campaign time, so you'd love to get involved. I know the Conservative Party is always looking for volunteers for whenever, just to be ready for whenever there's a next election, or even to help people out in the community, and just get into your community and really get involved.
Well, and you know what? You mentioned Eric Duncan, and he is one of my dear friends. But he started out in municipal politics just like I did, and so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. Get involved in your local community as well. Volunteering for organizations is about being involved as well. It doesn't have to always be politics to be engaged and get involved. So just get involved locally as well.
Exactly. There's so many community organizations that do so many great things. Just if something speaks to you, do it. Just get involved. I'm sure your local organizations and community groups need help, whether that's anything that they need in your community. I'm sure there's lots of things and lots of people that would love your help. So thank you, Scott, for joining us today. We really appreciate you being with us. We wish you well in everything that you do in the future. And we really thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Gabe. I'm happy to come back anytime and chat with you anymore. Thanks.
For sure. And that is it. We hope you enjoyed today's interview. You can look for more videos coming soon. Make sure to follow our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook accounts at Ontario HS Cons. And for more for more great content and information about our next interview, we have a whole ton of interviews ready to go. We are working on them super hard. We looked at our poll numbers recently, and we asked you the followers to ask who we should interview more of, and we're looking at that. We are definitely looking at that. We're going into the summer, hopefully. And make sure to look at our website at ontariohsconservatives.org to learn more about us, and for more great things. That is where everything we are doing is. And make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss a video. We hope to see you all soon. Thank you for joining us.